and gentlemen, please welcome back your Disrupt MC and Special Projects Editor TechCrunch, Jordan Crook.
Hey, hey, hey. I hope you had a great break. We've had, oh, thank you. I also clap for you, good madame. Okay, we have had a lot of health stuff. We've had some robot stuff. And now we're going into Bionic Arms. So please welcome Samantha Payne from Open Bionics and our moderator, Jon Shieber.
Hello. I am Jon Shieber, for now. Y'all settle in because you're gonna see a lot of me in the next 50 minutes or so. But more importantly than myself, we have Samantha Payne, or Sammy, who is the Chief Operating Officer and co-founder of Open Bionics, an Edge Young Ambassador, a Bristol Post Young Entrepreneur, and a Marie Claire Women in Tech Award winner. That's a hefty.
It's a mouthful.
That is a mouthful. That's quite a mouthful. But and all for good reason, because Open Bionics is a pretty. I hesitate to do this because I should have some journalistic reserve, but it's a pretty gosh darn amazing company. And y'all are doing some cool shit, I think is a technical term for it. Can you tell the folks who might not know what Open Bionics is a little bit about what it is that y'all are doing?
Yes. So Open Bionics is a robotics company building bionic hands for amputees. They're 3D printed, which makes them very cost effective. And they come in the style of superheroes. So we take children who have limb differences and turn them into their favorite hero.
Well, it's not just for children. I mean, adults, anyone.
Anyone
can get an arm. Now, a little bit, I'd love to hear about how you got involved in this company, because my understanding is you started out as a journalism major.
Yeah.
Yeah? And you started as a journalism major from a very young age. Can you talk a little bit about your first forays into journalism? I believe there was a Granny Project that was a newspaper that you were involved with at one point. I'm doing it.
Yeah,
we're going there.
doing it. Okay. The Granny Project. Really?
Granny Project.
TechCrunch Disrupt. We're going to talk about my
we'll
Granny.
get to other things. But anyway, so you have a background in journalism. What brought you from reporting to Bionic Arms?
So my co-founder, Joel Gibbard, he's a robotics engineer, and he ran a crowdfunding campaign on Indiegogo. He was fundraising to develop an open source 3D printed robotic hand. And I saw the story. It was a Bristol story. And so I went to cover it for the local newspaper. And while I was meeting him, he was telling me about the problems amputees face with getting advanced bionic limbs. Even though we have amazing bionic technology, most people can't afford it. And so it's a bit of a waste. And so what he wanted to do was to take the functionality of really expensive hands and open source it, and then offer it to amputees at an affordable price. And so he totally sold me on this idea. And then he found this competition called Make It Wearable, run by Intel. It was a wearable technology competition. And he asked me if I would sort of start Open Bionics with him and pitch the idea with him.
And initially, there wasn't a lot of traction around sort of the adoption of the arms. What was it that got the arms to sort of take off, or the company to take off?
During the Make It Wearable competition, we went through like a Berkeley accelerator program, and both Joel and myself, we don't have business backgrounds. And so that program really taught us a lot about how you build a really good product. And so what Joel had been doing was basically building the most perfect bionic hand that was very advanced and very technical, but it turns out that's not what amputees necessarily want.
Right.
They want something that has functionality, but it doesn't have to be the best functionality if they can have it be light or comfortable. So we started speaking to amputees, and they told us, oh, when I was growing up, it was really hard for me being given a cosmetic hand or having a hook. What would have been really cool is if I had something that showed off my personality. And so we started co-designing bionic limbs with amputees, and that made us start thinking up all these sort of crazy ideas about what about if you could have a hand that had a USB fingertip
Right.
fingertip that you could unplug, and playing around with the ideas of what a human hand could do and what it could look like. And that's when Open Bionics really started to take off, because we were redesigning the human hand and we weren't trying to copy the human hand.
What is the significance of 3D printing to the company? Why? Because it's sort of a combination of a lot of really cool things that are sort of bubbling in the tech community. Bionics, robotics, and the notion of 3D printing. What does 3D printing bring to the table for the company?
So I was pitching to an investor like last week, and someone said, "Oh, it sounds like you're playing buzzword bingo because you're saying there's a 3D printed robotic hand and you use 3D scanning."
Yeah.
But the only way to answer that is that these are the best technologies available for us to make an affordable limb. So we're just taking advantage of them.
What's the cost difference between a limb that you're making and sort of a top of the line model from a traditional manufacturer of robotic arms?
So it's really hard to put a single price on the really expensive or advanced hands. They range from anywhere from £30,000 to £60,000.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
How much do yours cost?
We're aiming for £5,000.
And is that how much y'all are selling the arms for, versus, because people can actually just download the kit and make their own, right? Or download the instructions and make their own. How much for parts?
Parts.
Or like if someone wanted to print the arm themselves, or get the
So
prosthetic.
it's not open source yet, and the parts haven't been finalized.
Okay.
So I wouldn't know. But at the moment, we have an open source robotic hand available, and the parts, I think, is something around £400 or £500. The most expensive parts are the motors.
Right.
But yeah, the really cool thing about being open source is that you open up your development to a huge amount of engineers, and engineers and roboticists love the human hand, and they like the feel-good, tech-for-good aspect of the project. And so you have all these researchers who want to spend their free time working on it.
Well, the digital manipulation of the human hand is one of the most difficult things for roboticists to sort of grapple with and get a handle on, right? I mean, that's been one of the gating agents for a lot of different applications, right, in robotics.
Yeah, it's seriously difficult. So the human hand is just like an amazing feat of engineering. It's like very strong, it's fast, it's really light, it doesn't tire, you can sense the world around you, and to try and build all of those capabilities into a robotic hand that is this size, it's just incredibly difficult. You can only really fit 5 motors in the size of a palm. And then if you add sensors, it gets far more expensive and bulkier and heavier. So you have to make lots of design compromises.
Now, speaking of design, and not design compromises, but sort of design partnerships, you mentioned that the arms, the prosthetics really started to take off when people were able to design their own. But one of the great things that y'all have been able to do is partner with some of the largest media companies in the world. You were in the Disney Accelerator, right, with TechStars. And have licensed some of their designs or images for making these prosthetics.
Mm-hmm.
And can you talk a little bit about how those partnerships evolved and sort of how they affected or impacted the growth of the company?
Yeah, sure. So last year we were part of the TechStars Disney Accelerator. So Disney take in around 10 companies a year. I was in the second class. It was fairly new. And they take in 10 companies that they think are going to be disruptive and they want to be a part of and help really. And so we got put in touch through someone at Disney with the ILM XLab group. Mm-hmm. And those guys are amazing. They really love the project, got really enthusiastic about it, and so made loads of different designs for us. And they said that their artists were having so much fun designing these Star Wars limbs that they didn't want to actually do any of their real work.
their real work. So how many different, there are Avengers arms, right? There are, or prosthetics, there are Star Wars prosthetics, and Frozen prosthetics as well. How many different sort of, what's the range of Disney properties that y'all are making for now?
So it's Marvel, Star Wars, and the Walt Disney Animation Company, which...
So all of it?
Yeah.
That's so cool.
It's really cool.
Are you going to come out with new, what's the latest model that y'all are working on now?
We can't say yet, but that we have lots of, we have loads of really, really cool designs. just waiting, just patiently waiting. But they are awesome.
So you have a lot of corporate partnerships as well, but one of the problems I would think in getting out to the community is maybe working with other organizations as well. And I'm wondering whether you can tap something like the NHS for distribution of the prosthetics, or would you want to work with them on something?
Yeah, absolutely. So the NHS is the biggest healthcare network in the world, and I think it would be absolutely amazing for young amputees when they come into the clinic that they're offered something that really inspires them and empowers them, and enables them to do things more that their peers can do.
And is the NHS working on that with you now, or are they?
So we are this week signing a sort of a developmental contract. So there's a network called SBRI Healthcare, and they basically look for products that could change people's lives, and it's about accelerating the path for a company like mine to get our products into the NHS.
That's cool. So what does that entail? What does that mean? What are the implications of that partnership for y'all?
It's huge.
Yeah.
It's absolutely massive. And if anyone who's worked with medtech before and the NHS or any healthcare system knows how massive it is for a company to get a foot in the door with them, and especially on a program where they're funding a feasibility trial and then they're funding further product development and maybe rolling it out. So it's really huge, and it's very exciting.
That's amazing. That's really cool. I want to return to the Disney thing for 1 second. Are you going to be making like a robot body for Walt? Like when because they have his head in storage, so I'm wondering if they're gonna.
That would be really cool, but definitely not my discipline.
So what are the next steps for the company in terms of product development? Are you looking at things beyond prosthetic arms? Where else might you go with prosthetics for people?
So we sort of position ourselves as a robotics company that creates assistive technologies for the millions of people around the world who have some form of mobility issue. So we're just starting with the bionic hand. We'd like to add a wrist and an elbow, and then tackle the upper limb prosthetic problem, because there's just isn't really anything available for upper limb amputees that have a really good control system and is dexterous.
Well, you have one product already for upper limb amputees, or you were working with a guy on something that would attach to the back?
Yes, that was an art project.
Okay.
And that was insane. So James, his name is, and we were working with Sophie of the Alternative Limb Project, and it was a full arm that was like an armored arm, inspired by Metal Gear Solid. And it had a drone attached to it.
Right.
And it had like a built-in smartwatch. It had all of these crazy LEDs. It had a bendable wrist, and there was a torch in the wrist. And
a torch? Like yeah. Okay, that's
flashlight.
So cool. That's so cool. Beyond just applications for prosthetics and or applications or use in prosthetics, there seems to be an opportunity for that kind of technology to be extrapolated out and used in robotics as well. Would you look at industrial applications? Would you look at sort of working with companies? We had Boston Dynamics on stage yesterday. Someone like that to build out a more functional robot that would have digital manipulation capabilities too.
Potentially. So we do build robotic hands for robots as well. And that's what we're selling at the moment.
Okay.
And so researchers buy these robot hands, and usually they're used in research where they have a humanoid robot and they're studying human-robot interaction, or they're doing grasping tasks.
Is there a way to blow that out beyond just sort of research projects? Are there potentially companies that might look to work with you, partner with you on other robotics applications?
I know what you're trying to ask me.
What?
You're not allowed to ask me.
I'm not trying to ask you nothing.
There's lots of potential there. We have been asked by a couple of companies to build robot hands for interesting research purposes. And there's a huge potential there. I think at the moment we're focused on building a medical company, but we could totally do that.
who might want to partner with you on something
I'm
like?
not going to say.
All right, all right, I'll let it slide. Now you mentioned that in an interview, in a previous interview that I read, where I got a lot of fascinating information, that you said Anouk Whitpreck is one of the inspirations for the work that you're doing. Would the company get into other kinds, not just robotics or not bionics, but actually sort of body mods for people universally or globally? Let's say I wanted to put a phone in my hand. Would you be able to do that for me or want to be involved?
Definitely not.
Why not?
It's an interesting space, and
Right.
I know lots of people who are biohackers, but it's not. We're really interested in helping people who like restore functionality,
Right.
or maybe even enhance that functionality a little bit. But biohacking is essentially giving yourself an extra sense or or an extra function, and it's very small scale at the minute. It's like personal. There's like a small community. You do it to yourself. It's
Right.
DIY. We're interested in sort of making a mass solution for a
Well,
big problem.
it's interesting that just in terms of the ways in which people seem to respond to the prosthetics. I saw an interview that you did with a guy in Germany where he started talking about how he almost wished that he didn't have an arm, which is so that he could have one of these cool bionic ones,
Yeah.
which struck me as both a little sort of perverse and sort of distasteful, but also something that I think people are gravitating towards, this notion of better living through technology. And I'm wondering how you sort of address these issues, because there are some sort of interesting psychological.
Yeah, we always say don't do that. So we do get a lot of people say, especially around the fandom. So if you get the people who are big fans of Star Wars, the people who are big fans of Deus Ex, they want the merch. Like they want to feel like, so with Deus Ex, it's the actual character's arm. They want to feel like the character. And people sometimes think that the bionic hands are better than human hands, but that's not the case.
Right.
Especially not yet. So I can see where they're coming from, but it's just a terrible idea.
Yeah. Well, we can agree on that. I mean, at what point does the functionality become better? And what's the gating agent for that? Why aren't? Is it just it's impossible to actually make a bionic hand with the full functionality?
No, it's not impossible. It's just it's form factor. You need. So if you wanted to make a really dexterous hand, there is someone built, I think, in China, an anatomically correct robotic human hand, and it's amazing. It's got all of these tendons, and it moves just like a human hand. But then what you don't see in the video, I'm assuming, is underneath the table. It's like all of these motors
Right.
pulling all of these tendons, and so you
Right.
could never like fit that on an arm, not yet anyway.
You mentioned fundraising. Can you talk a little bit about the experience working with TechStars and where you're at now in terms of raising money? Where are y'all at?
We're raising our first seed round now. We've managed to fund 2 years of development through winning startup competitions, winning grants. We've been supported by Nominate Trust with their healthcare tech seed fund.
Yeah.
And now the NHS through the SBRI.
Yeah.
So there are, in England, we're really lucky, the UK, because there are these pots of money available for healthcare products. So we've been doing that. And TechStars, they invested a little, as they do with their program, and
Right.
they were insanely awesome.
Insanely
Insanely
awesome.
awesome. I recommend TechStars to all of my founder friends because they really like drill into your business assumptions, and they help you build a really stable business model, and they give you mentors,
Yeah.
and it's really, really great.
Yeah, but you'd mentioned when we were chatting backstage that at this point you'd look for money from the UK rather than from the US. What's the thinking behind that? Just
We're
national pride?
Yes, I'm national pride. No. But it's nice to be local. We really like being in Bristol, so we spent 2 years developing at the Bristol Robotics Lab.
Yeah.
It's one of the best robotics labs in Europe, and it creates this cutting-edge research. So we want to stay local, and it's just better for everyone if your investors are local. You don't have to
Right.
fly around for board meetings or anything.
Better to stay local. And you know, what are you going to be using that money for? Is there a need for you to hire more engineers, or where are you going with the company? For what are next steps?
Yes.
Discrete next
So
steps.
we're growing.
Okay.
So for all of our next products, there's a lot that we want to get done. We're going through CE marking now and medical testing, medical certification. We really want to hire mechanical engineers, electronics, software and product design engineers, just to get started on the next designs that we have that we just can't work on at the minute.
What kinds of designs might they be? Where would you be drawing inspiration from for these new designs?
Everywhere and anywhere. Really.
Any particular entertainment properties, movies, things that might be coming out?
You're trying to get me to spill secrets.
What? Never.
You crafty journalist. No, we really take inspiration from all sorts of video games and things.
Well, so we've been talking about the prosthetics for a long time, but I understand you've brought a gentleman who actually uses them, and I was wondering if he might be able to join us on stage to chat a bit about the arm that the prosthetic that he's using, and his experience with it. So, if you wouldn't mind coming on out. Yeah. Hey, how you doing? Dan, Jon Shieber, nice to meet you.
Hey.
Oh, boom.
Yeah, fist bump.
Yeah, we'll do that. So, how long have you been using prosthetics from Open Bionics?
For about 2 years now.
And is that the latest model?
This is the latest model.
And
pretty kick-ass.
Yeah, it is. That's the Deus Ex from the game.
Yeah.
How many different ones have you tried on?
So it's been about 2 years, maybe 5, 6. It's like you get one, then next time I come down, they're like version 2.0 and stuff like that.
You're like on the train to Bristol, getting fitted. What designs have been your favorite?
Probably this one the most, just because I'm a gamer and I'm a big fan of the Deus Ex franchise. So being part of this, like when Sammy asked me, I was like, oh, this is mind-blowing. But then probably the first one, because I didn't know much about 3D printing at the time. I didn't know what was capable, and knowing it was low cost, it was just mind-blowing.
Yeah.
So I think because it was personally the first one I ever tested, it really meant a lot to me. So.
Would you? I mean, now that you, because you have your own 3D printing company now too, as a result of getting involved
I've just
in this.
recently started up.
Yeah.
So I just got so fascinated, I decided to start up. And
so now, would you? Should they open source these designs for the prosthetics? Would you want to jump on that, or?
Yeah, I mean, that's one reason why I really wanted to help out as well, is like, if I was able to 3D print and maybe one day like someone goes, oh, I want to 3D print one of the hands, I could maybe possibly go, hey, I could print that from my house, and then you got the arm yourself, and then go from there, really.
And then 1,000 flowers bloom of micro entrepreneurs who are licensing or using the tech to really provide it to the community.
Yeah, we had a really cool guy in America. His name's Taylor, and he lost all of his limbs in Afghanistan, and he sent us a video of him trying our arm. We had never met him, but he had found our arm online and downloaded it and built it with his friend in his garage.
That's cool.
And then was sort of like updating it, adding stuff.
That's amazing. What sort of mods do you want on your?
Well, as we were discussing, probably like a phone or something.
Yeah.
So just be like on my phone.
You want to do the
like,
actual?
Just like, I'm just talking to my hand as you would. And then just like, because I'm a gamer and a geek and stuff, I'd love to have ones that incorporate with like obviously the Marvel ones, so I'd like a Deadpool or a Venom or something like that.
Yeah.
Or even like just gaming ones. It's just, that's the thing, like one day you could have like, like clothes and stuff. One day you could be like, today I feel like wearing the Adam Jensen arm, tomorrow I feel like wearing an Iron Man arm, and I think that's fantastic, because that's what I always wanted when I was a kid. And living in that time is just, it's insane to be even helping, to be honest.
Yeah.
I think with children especially, and actually and with adults, but so traditionally we'd think about having a limb difference as having a disability, or you'd see a cosmetic hand, or you might elicit strange stares, or you might be on the receiving end of some weird judgment. But now, with these designs, with something that's cool, suddenly your peers at school find it really cool, and they really want one. Your friends really want one, but only you can have it. So it's suddenly like a really big positive about you.
Right. Well, and we were talking about this a little bit as well. The sort of psychological impact of being able to have one of these prosthetics that is so cool. You had mentioned in a conversation at dinner yesterday evening that there were some designs that maybe companies didn't want y'all to use for psychological purposes. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's all right. I think it's safe. So when we were working with Star Wars, we phoned up all these kids and we were like, which character do you want? And loads of children wanted to be Darth Vader, dark kiddies.
Right.
And so there was some real concern, like what is the implication of giving a kid Darth Vader's hand who can like force choke people, like.
And I mean, do you?
Scary.
I mean, how does it? Is there an impact psychologically when you sort of put on the arm? Is it? Or the
Well,
prosthetic?
I think I was just talking backstage about this. Like, the fact is that when I wear this, some people think it's a glove, and then when they realize it's a prosthetic, they're not like, "What happened to your arm? How did that happen?" They're more like, "What is this? How does it work? Why can't I have one?" And that's what I want to hear. And when I was a kid, I get prosthetics that people would just be like, they would know straight away. And obviously, there's no problem with that at all,
Right.
with those prosthetics. But they're just, for me and most people, they just weren't comfortable. And
Yeah.
having something that makes you feel inside more positive and showing that something like this makes you just feel more empowered and more inspired.
Yeah.
And makes people jealous. So.
When you think about how far this technology can go, what do you see as the limit for the ways in which these arms or the prosthetics can impact folks, and how broad of a range of products do you see Open Bionics developing?
I think it's very broad. We want to get into lower limb and even exoskeletons for rehabilitation, because there are far more people in the world who have hands but don't have the control over them. They don't have the mobility because they've been paralyzed. So it'd be really cool to work on exoskeletons for arms. There's a huge range of robotic tech that is currently really expensive and that could be cheaper, made
With
cheaper.
3D printing, how far away is that? How far away are we from that? These exoskeletons, or?
I think quite far.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially affordable exoskeletons. But the really interesting thing is that in research labs all over the world, there are people working on this.
Right.
And it may be soon that we're all choosing to augment our bodies because we want to be stronger, we want to run faster. I've been thinking about this a lot because of working with Dan and Deus Ex.
Yeah.
They really push, their artists push your design thinking. So in their cyberpunk reality world video game, people choose to lose a limb and have a body upgrade.
Which again is a terrible idea, right? We want to
Yeah,
stress that.
that does worry me. If I had two hands, I wouldn't choose to cut my own hand off. Like,
Right.
I get that these are fantastic and cool, but when I started helping on this project, especially, I've had people going, "I want that so badly, I cut my hand off," and I was like, "Please don't do that."
Yeah,
Like,
Yeah.
it's a bit worrying.
It is a bit worrying, but the promise is incredible, and the work that y'all are doing is really, it's just cool. It's
Thank
just
you.
really, really cool.
Thanks.
So thank you so much for taking the time to share it with us, and we appreciate it very much. Thank you all for listening, and it's been great chatting.
Thank you.
Cheers. Bye.
I give a proper handshake now.
Proper handshake. There we go. Cheers.